Yes, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are joining from. We greet you all. I'm Olalekan Odede. I'm a community advocate for Save the Woman. Thank you very much to all the parents that are on this platform. And also thank you to all the statutory partners that are also joining. It's great to have you all here. Save the Woman is a community organization that we base in Middlesbrough, and we support clients through advocacy, training, and advice. Uh, However, recently from 2019, we have been providing support to families of children that are taken into care system because it has come to our aware that a lot of parents are struggling to breathe and they are struggling for their voices to be heard. That is why we we are providing advocacy support. We are also looking at how best can we support, and by doing this, is by make sure that we provide training, and that is what it led to Africentric parenting course, which we started July 2020. And on that note, we would like to say thank you to our sponsor that helped us to pilot Course 101. That is National Lottery Community Fund and County Durham. And also we got recently support from Together Middlesbrough and Cleveland, who they sponsor one of the cohorts and for us to pilot 101. But the demand is so high, and that is why we said we need more of courses like this due to feedback we see from the parents. And we had 101 and we also launched 201. And thank God today, we are having a pilot phase 1 for African course 301. I would like to extend the greetings, well wishes, and the apologies from some of our local leaders, stakeholders. Firstly, Andy McDonough, MP for Middlesbrough, he sent his apology. Professor Mark Simpson, that's Vice Chancellor, Learning and Teaching, TISA University. Dr. David Bell, Vice Chancellor, International from TISA Uni. Susanna Story, that's Director General for Digital and Media, Department for Digital, Culture, Media, and Sarah Ellie, Permanent Secretary from the same department, Department for Digital, Culture, Media, and Sports. We also got apology and well wishes from Susan Miller, that Chief Officer for Glasgow City Health and Social Care Partnership, and Michelle Cooper, Chief Executive for County Durham Community Foundation, Catherine Jeffrey, CEO, Together Middlesbrough and Cleveland. That is where we got well wishes and apology from. We will appreciate all of you. Please use your name, use your first name and last name so that I'll be able to identify who and who is on this platform. And also don't forget to use the chat box to tell us your name, where you're calling from. We know who is joining us today. Nana, God bless you. Thank you for joining. Auntie Nana is the Secretary for International Decade for the People of African Descent, IDPAT Coalition UK. I would like to welcome you for the official declaring this course open and for the introduction of the course facilitator. Thank you, Auntie Nana. Over to you, please.
Well, thank you. And apologies for I had some technical problems joining. I will share my screen if that's possible.
That's fine. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So just give me a minute to get the presentation out there. So good afternoon, everybody. You're most welcome to this exciting new development. There we are, everybody. My name is Nana Asante. I am the Secretary of IDPAT Coalition UK, and this deals with the UN Decade of People of African Descent. I am also the Information Officer of Global African Congress. I chair Africans for JC Values, and I moderate Eco-Conscious Citizens. And the reason, and I also chair the A Connections Global Village. And this is to tell you that I'm very much a person in the community. I'm the former mayor of Harrow Council. I'd like to start with a quote from Shirley Chisholm. And she said, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." And we're here today because Save the Woman is implementing this idea of we need to equip people with the knowledge that will enable them to keep their children at home. So that is why we are here. And what we've done so far, for those who've been following what Save the Woman has been doing, is that we've had Afrocentric Parenting Course 101. And Course 101 basically was to give our parents the basics of what it means to parent in a new culture. So essential knowledge for parents. We then had Afrocentric Parenting Skills 201. And this is essential knowledge for parents who have teenagers and how to navigate bringing up teenagers in this very confusing world. And today we're here to look at Afrocentric Parenting Skills 301, which is about understanding parents in the context of equality and diversity. The person who's going to take us through this course is Dr. Shola Deshallah. And she's a very interesting person to know. If you Google her, you'll find out that she's an innovative, talented, entrepreneurial, and versatile professional with over 20 years postgraduate experience. She's an equality and diversity lead, both in the university and outside of it. She's an author, she's a senior lecturer, and she's a visiting professor. And she has helped a number of people become PhDs. She's a coach. She actually helps people with their mock vivas, etc. She's a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and an ordained minister of the gospel. So without further ado, I'd like us to welcome Dr. Shola Deshallah, who will take us through her view of what we need to know, both as parents and as workers in the statutory sector, and as volunteers and workers in the charity sector. So over to you, Dr. Shola.
Thank you very, very much, Auntie Nana. Thank you very much for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are joining this afternoon, London, Glasgow, Middlesbrough. I'm from the Midlands. It is a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Thank you, Olalekon Odediji, for inviting me. Save the Woman. 2 years ago, that was my first experience of participating in Save the Woman. And yes, I had a good experience in Middlesbrough, with Olalekon and the team, the powerful team that he's working with. So this afternoon, I am coming on board to just maybe whet our appetites. I'm not, I don't work in the social services, but I'm coming from policy perspective. That's what I'm bringing on board is really to challenge us. I think the introduction has been said already, and I'm really trying to bring in from the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion from this. So let me just share my screen, and then with the time that we have, we'll see how we can get on. So I have actually titled my talk this afternoon, Influence of Policy Towards a More Inclusive Parenting Competence. I'm going to start from the premise of ethnicity and cultural perspective, and I will share some of the findings that actually came from research. Because as academic, I can't just come and talk to you. I have to do my work, even though I'm not an expert in the social services, but I am an expert from policy perspective. And I want everybody to see from policy, to see how things can be improved. Like if I am a parent, I am a mother, and I'm a grandmother. This course, everything that they have been doing, Save the Woman, when, in the early 90s, when I started my own, family, if I had the opportunity of listening, sitting down like this and listening, maybe some of the things that we have gone through as part of parenting may not have happened. So it's really a combination of speaking from experience, but also what does the policy actually say that can help us to improve on parenting skill. So I will start from the research, what the research has done, and then move on to government regulation. And then I'll finish because this is more of stakeholder. I want to by asking the stakeholders in the room and the parents, how do we move forward in terms of joining hands together? So I hope the time will allow me to be able to do that. So I'm not spending a lot of time on introduction because there isn't enough time to actually go through. I have to take out a lot of slides, from my presentation. So I think the whole idea of this cohort, this particular cohort, is part of the general agenda of Save the Woman to try to improve our understanding of helping services, social services, and the agencies, the stakeholders involved to improve the communication between parents and the stakeholders. So that's a lot of the issues that parenting are experiencing. We can find a middle ground. A middle ground to work forward, to move forward in this agenda of parenting skill and also the social services. I don't know how many people have heard it, maybe it's an African adage that it takes a village to raise a child, and it is very, very true. In African culture, and I said maybe Black culture, it's not just the parent that bear children. People they also have a role and contribution to raise the child to the point where they are destined to be. So while the parents have the primary responsibility, but actually the community, the extended family, they have a primary role, secondary role to play. So it takes a village to raise a child. But now that a lot of the Black people have come into the UK, we have been faced with cultural shock. We have been faced with having to adapt the Black culture, the African culture, the Caribbean culture into the English culture. And so most parents are in a cloud 9, catch-22 situation. How should we raise our children? Because we cannot keep our children at home. They have to mingle with their friends and their colleagues in schools, in universities, in the work of place. But the primary thing is at the beginning of their life, when they started, the nursery school, and then they move on to primary school, and then from there to secondary school. The formative stage are very, very important for those who are born in the United Kingdom, and even those that we brought from our original country to the United Kingdom. That change and adaptation, where do I fit in, is a confusing state for a lot of children. And so I think that's where, this course, which they have been trying to do, is supposed to educate all of us, both parents and also the agencies involved in social services. Right, okay, I want to start by asking us this question. If I had more time, I actually wanted to make it to be able to break into maybe a small breakout session, but because of the time, I will not be able to do that. So we'll do it as a group. How is parenting in Black and minority ethnic families understood in the United Kingdom context? Many of you are coming from different organizations, councils, social services. A lot of parents are here. But how is parenting in BME community? How is it understood in the UK context? I'll just give maybe 1 minute, and then maybe 1 or 2 people can just share an insight, not long because of time, but I really like, yes, thank you very much, Dr. Okonko. Please go ahead, please.
Greetings, everyone.
I think you raised your hand. I saw a hand, Dr. Liz.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, doctor?
Is that a hand?
Can you hear me?
Okay. How is parenting? Can somebody just share with us, how is parenting understood in the UK?
Can you hear me, doctor? Hello?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, hello. Thank you, Dr. Shola. Apologies for not breaking the camera at the moment, but I will later. Like yourself, I'm a mother and a scientist. And to answer this question specifically, I feel that Black and ethnic minority families are not understood by the UK generally, the education system, the social sciences system, even though raising children is more or less the same, whatever our cultural backgrounds, but the issues that systemic problems face parents also seem to face the children, because there's certain assumptions made, and there's also fear on both sides, I have to say, to be fair, that the teachers seem to fear our parents and our children, and our parents fear the education system and social services, that if we miscommunicate, that's it. There's no coming back, there's no second chances. We break some kind of rule, invisible as it may be, and our children and ourselves are labelled, and often our children are taken from us.
Wow, thank you very much. I think there's a lot that you mentioned there, and I will definitely, look at some of them later on as I progress. But you raise, quite a good point. Systemic problem, a lot of assumption, a lot of fear in the mind of our children, and communication, some misinterpretation, especially when it comes to nudges, when it comes to languages, when it comes to cultural adaptation between maybe African Caribbean culture and the UK culture, having to adapt, and maybe change, bend, the way we are brought up to fit it into the UK culture. And of course, the rule, what is the rule of the game? And this is where perhaps the stakeholders will come in. What are those silent rules of the game that perhaps the African and Caribbean parents, they don't quite understand it, they don't get it? Because one is actually maybe lack of ignorance or lack of education, or perhaps the integration between the parents and the stakeholders are still missing. So thank you for raising those points. And I'm asking that because I don't want to just be speaking all the time. I want us to internalize some of these points, take them back to wherever, for those who are coming from social services, council, to take them back to your team and have a meeting about it. I'll make this slide available and just deliberate upon it, see, okay, these are the issues which have been raised, even from research, through focus group, through interviews of parents. So I want everybody to just go back and say, well, this is what has come from this meeting. Let's see how we can begin to put our heads together and see where there are gaps in our own processes and our system. And then see how we can join up thinking again to move forward in the right direction. That is the whole purpose of today. So I'm not going to be speaking as an expert on social services. No, that's not what I'm come to do, but I'm coming to just whet our appetite, show us some of the real facts that are out there already. So thank you. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is mind-blowing, well resourceful, well detailed. Thank you, Dr. Shola. I'm very sure a lot of us, we've got some questions to raise, and I'm very sure we'll come back to that shortly. But before we proceed, we need to take a break just for 5 minutes, and then we'll bring on our next person that will talk about alternative way again. And I'm very sure you've all blessed with what Pastor Dr. Shola Deshallah, what she just blessed us with this afternoon. We need to understand the diverse needs of families and the children. I'm very sure there are a lot of social workers also on this platform today, and they are going to contribute as well. So let's take a break for 5 minutes. Stretch your leg. Don't forget your questions. Put it in chat box. The person that is going to moderate that will start looking through all your questions so that we'll come back to that after the speakers that we bring on shortly after the break. Thank you very much. Relax, get yourself a cup of water. We'll take a 5 minutes break. At 12 minutes past 5, we will come back on this platform. Don't go yet. Thank you.
That man was asking, what can I do to enter, to receive eternal life? And Jesus said, love your neighbor. Who is your neighbor? Love God and love man. In First Chronicles, as I'm beginning to just wind down, because as I was speaking to Ola yesterday, there was very strong sense that there's a need for prayer, and I want to raise some prayer points here. So when we look at Second Chronicles chapter 20, we're all familiar with the story of Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was a king that is having trouble concerning a city, and he didn't know how to resolve that, but to say, Lord, I am calling a fast and a prayer. Just like here, the Save the Woman is an anchor as a platform within RCCG, our Savior Parish. Thank you, sir, for supporting him. The first time I met Ola 2 years ago, he came for a conference that I was hosting at Oxford University, all the way from Middlesbrough. That is somebody that believes in something and is supported. Grassroots advocate for justice. And so when he cannot solve the problem on his own, and so he's asking everybody, let's do it together. This, Jehoshaphat, in chapter 20, and I'll just review verses and then I'll raise some prayer points. The problem here, the reality of life which we're all facing, is that it came to pass after this also, that the children of Moab and the children of Ammon, and with them other beside the Ammonites, came against Jehoshaphat to battle. There was a war, there was a crisis in the city, and the king didn't have any solution, didn't know how to go about it, but to say, Lord, the solution is let's pray together, let's call a fast. That was the reality, what we are facing. Yes, issues about children in the foster care. The society is corrupt. There's crisis in the world. These are realities that we are facing. But we know that we cannot solve it by ourselves, except to say, Lord, you intervene. And so the king, in verse 3, he said, and Jehoshaphat feared and set himself to seek the face and proclaim a fast. I'm going to fast here because it's a long one. How he's responding, he said, oh Lord God, our Father, hath not thou God in heaven, and ruleth not thou over all the kingdoms of the hidden, and in their hand is there not power and might, so that none is able to withstand them.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. It's time. 5 minutes already exhausted. I'll hand over back to Judah. Are you there?
Hi, Ola. Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Take over.
Hello. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much to Save the Woman for this wonderful mission to help families and children be safe. It's my great pleasure to introduce Marianne Lachlan. Marianne Lachlan began working with youth in foster care and families in crisis for the court-appointed Special Advocate Programme of the Suffolk County Family Court in New York in 1989. She's a Florida certified dependency mediator and a registered neutral with the Georgia Office of Dispute Resolution in both civil and dependency matters. Ms. Locklin is also certified as an at-risk adult crimes tactical specialist and is an approved racial justice facilitator for the Janet Rankin Foundation. Ms. Locklin began mediating in 1995 and has been training mediators since. She developed and implemented one of the first mediation diversion restorative justice programs in Georgia for juvenile first offenders. As a result of the success of the Clayton County Juvenile Courts Mediation Diversion Program, Ms. Locklin received an award of appreciation from Judge Martha K. Glaze. Ms. Locklin was invited by the Georgia Permanency Mediation Pilot Program to co-mediate the very first dependency deprivation case in the state of Georgia, and due to the success of the program, mediation is available in many juvenile courts throughout the state to address issues that arise in adjudicated child abuse and neglect cases. In 1998, Ms. Locklin founded Amani Services, a collaborative conflict transformation firm that offers in-person and online mediation, facilitation, conflict coaching, training, and dispute resolution system design. In the Kiswahili language, Amani means peace and amplifies the vision of this firm, which is to create a culture of peace through collaborative decision-making and joint problem-solving in a manner that values the dignity and contribution of every human being. Amani Services' mission is to foster conflict transformation through engagement, empathy, and shared opportunities for personal and relational growth and development. Amani Services is also a minority women-owned small business and is certified as a military spouse-owned enterprise by the US Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Marianne Lachlan.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a little brief summary of how I met Ola. Basically, I was browsing through some Eventbrite events, and I noticed there was a class for Afro-Caribbean families. And I was excited to see it because I come from an Afro-Caribbean family. And so I joined in the class, signed up for it. I believe that there was a discrepancy, or I didn't realize the discrepancy of the time. So I think I missed the one in July, but caught the one in August, which was the second course that they offered. And I was so excited to just be a part of that class. I was amazed at the gentleness and the transparency of the parents and the trainer. I was excited to see that the class was actually being taught by Afro-Caribbean presenters, because often when you go to a class that's considered, you know, diverse, usually it's just a Caucasian presenter. So I was excited to see that. And I participated. I actually just kind of observed, and afterwards I sent Ola just a brief suggestions or things that I thought that his program did so extremely well, and gave him a couple of suggestions on things that he might want to do as he's embarking on this endeavor. And I didn't hear from him for a while, but then I saw another email that was sent out, and I again reached out to him and asked him if he was familiar with mediation process. And I explained to him how they started a program here in the state of Georgia in the US back in 1998 was the initial pilot start. So anyway, that's how I got to know Allah. So I didn't know him personally, but I was very happy to see the course and how efficient it was, the information that was being shared, how the parents were so appreciative of the information, how they were honest about their struggles and their challenges regarding dealing with professionals in the field who had removed their children from care, from their homes. And so anyway, I did want to encourage all of the stakeholders that are here today that if you find that Save the Woman is a helpful organization in your community, I want to ask everyone here that's on the call today to try to support their organization because they're doing some fantastic work that's critically needed in the community. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and transition quickly to my presentation. I got only 10 minutes and I just used 2 or 3. So let me go ahead and share. So I'm going to be talking briefly about the mediation, the permanency mediation pilot that was started here. So it started in 1998. Basically, it was started by stakeholders that got together for a whole year. They got together for a whole year before starting the program. So I want.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I'll bring Councillor Nana Asante.
Hello. First of all, a big thank you, first of all, to Dr. Shola for a very interesting presentation, and then to Marianne for what you've just shared with us about this pilot project, which sounds extremely exciting as something that maybe in the UK we could look at and help, because your outcomes sound really positive. So thank you so much for that. At this point, Brother Ola, I'm wondering if you are able to share that clip.
I'm just trying to log on my second system.
Okay. While Brother Luck tries to get the clip is a bit too. We've had presentations, and we're going to go into a Q&A in a few seconds. But the clip is about a minute, a little over a minute, and it's a humorous look at culture clash. And I'd like you to look at this clip in a way and sort of analyze in your mind what's going on in that family. What's going on? How is this family interacting with the community? And this is something that I'm sure most people are juggling. And it'll be a nice way to lead into the Q&A. At the moment, I have 4 questions, which I will call the people to ask. I'll give them the opportunity to ask the question themselves if they so wish. And then I will ask Dr. Shola and even Marianne if she could also maybe give her perspective on these questions. So thank you very much. Is it likely you're getting it now?
No, I'm just coming on the snap. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Let's go straight then into the Q&A. I'll start with Dr. Liz. Are you still in the room? Dr. Liz had 2 questions. Brother, please, can you stop sharing the screen if you're unable to share the video?
Hello? Hello?
Dr. Liz?
Hello, Sister Nana.
Yes, it's me.
Give me
I was wondering, could you ask your first question about managing behavior?
Give me 2 seconds, sorry. 2 seconds, sorry.
Are you able to ask your question? Because we are running out of time. We just barely have 10 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you so much. Brother, sorry. There's something wrong with my screen as well now. Let me see if I can share. Yeah. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much to the wonderful speakers that you've brought to our attention, Brother Ola. Sorry. Yes, so I had 2 questions. And I was just literally, I'm not blaming anyone or anything, but I'm definitely was interested in what Dr. Shola had gleaned from government research, and the title of equality of opportunity, equal opportunity, achieving inclusivity. Those titles are sort of really close to my heart, things that I feel I've spent my life trying to achieve in the NHS and then in schools for my own children. So I'm concerned that the beginning, the precepts of the Children's Commission and the Commission for Race Equality and Disparities both come up with assumptions. And at the beginning of your talk and the beginning of this program, we decided that we mustn't have cultural assumptions. We need to understand each other's culture, but not make assumptions about them. For example, this precept of managing behavior and emotion. So when a parent is angry or a parent is cross or a parent is not being listened to, of course they will be emotional. And of course they will express their emotion with anger, with frustration, with moving out of a room.
Dr. Liz, I don't want to cut you, but we do only have 10 minutes. Sorry. So if you can go straight into your
my question is that as the stakeholders that are here, I don't know, none of you have introduced yourselves besides our 2 lovely speakers and Sister Nana. What are your experiences of dealing with behaviour and also not just behavior, but also emotion, because culturally we're all going to have different emotions. We're all going to be slightly different in the way we approach.
Okay, so that's your first question. Can you go quickly to your second question?
And the second one is, why is it that schools are referring children from Black and Asian ethnic minority communities far more than other communities? And I do feel it's not helpful to compare African, Caribbean and Asian, Arabic, etc., Chinese, because we've got completely different experiences of being in this country, of education and inclusion.
Well, thank you very much for those two very interesting questions. I think Ola has managed to get the video clip. So before I ask Dr. Shola and Sister Maryann to attempt to answer the question, I'd like us to just watch this clip. Sorry, there's no sound. Ola, since there's no sound, can we just skip this then? Because the whole point will be lost if you can't hear what's being said. And before I bring in Dr. Shola, could I please also just point out that we haven't given an opportunity to anybody to introduce themselves. So I don't think we can blame anybody for not saying who they are, etc. We haven't given that opportunity. We went straight in, after the introduction, we went straight into Dr. Shola's presentation, and then we went into Sister Mariann's presentation. So let us focus on what we have here. There is a possibility for others to come in the little time that we have. So the question that Dr. Leza asked is, why do we have to manage our behavior and emotions? And the second one is, why do so many teachers feel the need to consult social care when it comes to African and other minority families? Surely that is a failure of the system in a sense. So please, Dr. Shola first.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Liz. Question that really I would have loved for maybe the parents to respond, to give us, because if I say something now, it may not be the lived experience. I would love to hear from the stakeholders, the agency, and the parents. So why do we need to manage our behavior and our emotions? Well, I think what I can say is that if I have to talk, I'll probably respond maybe from, Christian perspective to start with, okay? Because we're all created in a way that how you present yourself is how other people will see you. So you go out there and you project good values, your identity. I think earlier, like I mentioned, I was coming from another program and the person mentioned identity, forgiveness, and love. 3 things. So why do we need to manage our behavior and emotion? One, for me, to go out there, I need to understand who I am. And I need to manage myself as my personality, because how I project myself out there is how people will see me. So when it comes to the children, one of the things we train our children at home is that, 1, respect. 1 is your values, appreciate your values, know where you are coming from, your background. Don't go out and disappoint us, because each family have values. So manage your behavior, even when you are upset. Know how to manage that behavior without being disrespectful. So respect is actually very, very important. Core values of Black and ethnic minority, and I would say perhaps maybe more of an African kind of culture, respect, show the elders, people that are older than you, respect, and even between colleagues, peers, show respect. And I think, so managing that behavior is absolutely important, because as you train your children to show respect, to show values. So for example, we are trained that if an elder is talking, you don't point your finger. And of course, even different culture, the pointing of finger means different things. So if my child goes to school and somebody say, oh, he was pointing one, dirty finger, I can easily say, well, that is not my son or that's not my daughter, because that's not the way they are brought up. But in another culture, it may not mean that much. So managing our behavior and our emotion, I think the emotion has to do a lot with cognitive skills, our background, the home where we're coming from. Are the children, do they have freedom to be able to speak? Do we listen to them? Because if we don't, then a lot of things will be bottled up inside of them. So at the very earliest opportunity, when they have opportunity outside, they just flee. Why? Because we have not given that freedom to be able to express how they feel at home, because of the fear of, oh, I'm going to be rejected. They are not going to listen to me. So outside, at the earliest opportunity, they just want to, they express that emotion. And sometimes it could be a negative, the way it comes out may be negative. Other people might not respond well to it because of, they often say that African, we use a lot of emotion, our hands, or everything. And that says a lot about us. But some people might not understand it, might regard it as we're arrogant, that we're bold, we're loud. And so those nuances also needs to be understood, from cultural perspective. I think that's probably what I would like to say.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer.
Parents, because they are the ones actually, the current parents.
Dr. Shola, thank you so much for that answer.
Thank you. I know time is against us.
Yes, so the answer is a wonderful one. There'll be time for parents if we keep our answers short. I have asked the question that came from a parent, because Dr. Liz is also a parent, and she's asked the question, I think, in the context of, well, it seems as if we're putting pressure on parents, whereas there should be more understanding from society. So I'm paraphrasing what I think she's saying, but in order to save time, Sister Maryann, can I ask you to take the second question, which is, why do so many teachers feel the need to consult social care or social services when it comes to minority children?
I can't answer for the teachers, but I will say that the majority, I believe the last time I looked at statistics here in the US, teachers accounted for, Caucasian teachers with Eurocentric background, accounted for between 75, 85% of teachers nationwide. And so we found that most of the referrals that to DFACS, around the same percentage, were from teachers who were Caucasian, and that out of those referrals, less than 10% actually resulted in a finding or a, that's the word they use to determine whether there was something that was found to be valid as a concern of child abuse and neglect. So I can't answer for the teachers, but I would think that some of it has to do with racism. Some of it has to do with not understanding different cultures. Other things has to do with social issues, right? So you have a child that comes in with the same clothes they wore the day before. That's an issue of poverty, okay? That's not a child neglect issue. That may be an issue of poverty. That may be an issue of maybe the family doesn't have, or the parent, the child comes in with clothes that are not clean. It may be the parent does not have access to a washing machine, or the parent doesn't have the funds, or the parent is working 3 jobs and just couldn't wash the clothes that night, right? So, I think a lot of these times that they get referrals, it's not a genuine referral.
Thank you so much for that very interesting answer. There is a clip again on social media about a teacher, and this is a positive story from the United States, where it was a head teacher actually, or the headmaster, realized that exactly as Sister Mariann has described, children were coming in and kept dirty clothes. He found out that the issue was, again, an issue of poverty. And what he did was install washing machines in the school so that suddenly that issue was dealt with. And I think that is why Afrocentric Parenting 301 is so important. It's about creating that partnership so that we realize that it is not an either or. You know, it is, yes, teachers are one of the first lines of defense or first line of protection when it comes to, and there have been serious issues, but to just label all families is dangerous. And then to pick up on something Dr. Shola said about Africans being expressive, there is also a saying that if you tie a Frenchman's hands behind his back, he cannot talk. So there are several communities who express themselves by gesticulating. And I think we need to, and I think Dr. Shola has rightly pointed out that there needs to be some cultural literacy. We need to understand the communities we deal with. So I'll move swiftly on to Ingrid's question. So Ingrid, if you are still there, do you want to ask your, or the statement you made, do you want to read your statement so that I can ask for reactions from, so Ingrid, if you can please unmute.
Hello.
Hello, Ingrid. Thank you, Sister Ingrid, for coming. You put a question or a statement in the chat. So would you like to put that up? And ask, Brother Saeed, I've seen your question and I've seen you. So I'll try and get to you as soon as I've gone through that. Two more before you.
So basically, I am of the opinion that there isn't enough Afrocentric services to cater to African families, not only when children are already taken into care, but in general. So we are having to depend on services that were never meant for us in the first place. This is not a criticism. We come into the UK for whatever reasons, they've got their services, but unfortunately these services weren't designed for us. So we find ourselves in a situation where we're trying to access services, but they don't serve their purpose.
Thank you so much. That is very succinct. So can I first go to Sister Marianne first? And I know you are in the US and not the UK, but because you also have a cultural melting pot, as it were, how does the US cope with the fact that, yes, services tend to be Eurocentric? And we're all campaigning, and that's what Save the Woman is doing. We're campaigning to change things. So how does one deal with the fact that African communities and other communities are trying to access services that were not designed for us? So what's the answer?
Right. So initially the answer was to have staff that represented the community, the population, right? Not just the population that came into care, but just the population in general, right, of the geographic location. However, just placing case managers from the different cultures into the staff will not change anything, because the system is systematically racist, right? The systematic racism is still there. The system was set up in that effort, right? That was the focus. So whether anybody wants to admit that or not, it's true. So you can't put diverse workers in a systematic racist system and expect things to be different. So the initial thing was to have staff. And so they did. They got staff, they hired people, they had caseworkers going out. Things got better in terms of, a little better in terms of, families feeling more better able to communicate with their case managers. The case managers, they felt, were more understanding towards their cultures and understanding of their situation. But they still had to play by the rules that are in place. So what's happening now, and this is here, just in this state, I can't speak to other states, but in this state, what's happening now is they actually took their 25-year plan. So they made a plan 25 years ago, right, of where they wanted to be, the state of Georgia right now. And what they realized was they were nowhere near where they wanted to be. So what they've done is they've done stakeholder meetings in 25 different regional areas and included anyone from the community. So you didn't have to have, 6 letters after your name to attend. You could just attend as a community member. You could attend as a business person. You could attend as a parent. And they got feedback from people in the community. And then they sat down, and that's what they're in the process of right now, developing another plan about how they're going to do this. But also the things that came in, family preservation came in. So they give out, there's grants available for nonprofit organizations that want to help families. So they go into the home, they provide services if needed. So they've taken quite a bit of steps, but we still have a long way to go.
Thank you so much for that. First of all, can I indulge crave everybody's indulgence that we go 15 minutes over time? Thank you. So, Dr. Shola, I want to ask, there's a question from Ogoamaka. Sorry if I mispronounce your name, and in the interest of time, I will ask it. The comment that has been put is this, the quote from social services, and he's a Christian, and it's that being a Christian is detrimental to the child. How does one cope with such a discriminatory statement or attitude?
Well, I think my first reflection on that response is one, within the Equality Act, we have, faith and belief. So on the face of it, one can actually pick it up and say, that is not right. Religion is not detrimental to child development because there are Christian values. I mean, if you go back to the history of the United Kingdom, we know that this is a Christian society where in those days, you can go to school and you actually, cite the Bible in the school assembly. So, but something changed in the early 90s or thereabouts when shops began to open on Sundays. So we have seen shift in the landscape of the United Kingdom over the years. So because, my children, when they were young, they went to Catholic school. And I remember, you have to be coming to their church before your child is even admitted to the school, to the primary school at that time. And in the school assembly, they read the Bible, every child. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or everybody reads a Bible. So there is values. I'm a trustee of a school. It's a Christian-based school, and every walls in that school represent, Christian, the character of Jesus in that school. Why? Because they are building the character, the development of the children. So, for example, do not tell lies. Okay, they might not know this at home because the parents, maybe they are used to just telling lies, so they might think that is the normal way of doing things. But actually in the school, if they cannot get it at home, there is obviously the Christian value that said, do not lie. So, and I'll give you one example very, very quickly. Again, I was in a meeting probably about two weeks ago, thereabout, and an 11-year-old was telling the mom, oh, I had a dream. What is that dream? The dream is like, God was telling him, stop telling lies. And they said, stop telling lies. And so this boy was, agitating in the dream. Stop, okay, I will not stop telling lies. I will stop telling lies. And he woke up from that. And he then went back to the mom and said, oh, Mom, guess what? I had a dream and it was a terrible dream. I was talking to God and God said, stop telling lies, stop telling lies. And was not asking Mom, what should I do? What can I do to stop telling lies? Can I have a Bible to start reading? Where does it say stop telling lies? That's an 11-year-old boy. So religion, Christian values, what of faith will have something about lying that we know that. I'm just using it as an example. So to say that it's detrimental to child, I would beg to differ on that. There are values that are useful for developing who we are as individuals, as our identity as a human being, because we're all created equal. And I think that's probably what my response will be. That even Islam, Quran, so our faith has something to do with development of a child, and it gives them that sense of belonging, that sense of identity that they take out there to show that I belong to this particular faith group. And I am very strong in my belief, in my identity. For somebody to take that away from them or to try and discount them as unimportant will be detrimental. And that might be against, for example, the legal side of it, because there is faith and belief in the Equality Act. So that's
Thank you so much. That is a brilliant answer. So taking away a child's religious identity is not acceptable, and actually it's against the law. So moving swiftly, Andy Tatton put a comment in the chat. Andy, are you, you made a comment in the chat. Are you able to unmute? And it's a comment addressed to Marianne, I believe. Okay. Basically, what has been said is, in the US, and I think he's assuming that the parlor project that you mentioned is universal in the US. I believe it is not. But basically what he said was, in the US, it is good that they support parents. Here in the UK, no support is offered to parents and is only focused on the children. So first of all, can you clarify, Sister Marianne, whether or not this wonderful project that you were describing to us that took place in '98 is the universal experience when it comes to children in care?
No, it's not the universal experience. It's only in several states. It would be wonderful if the opportunity was in more states. However, again, as I shared before, I feel that offering this service even prior to children coming into care, for example, when there's first an initial referral to Child Protective Services, right? And the family is interacting with the Child Protective Services. If there's an issue that arises, whether they can't communicate or there's some conflict, having someone to kind of intermediary that discussion or facilitate that discussion would be helpful, so that it could avoid having the child come into care. I also wanted to just go back to the question, I believe that Dr. Okokon had mentioned about the anger. It's not any parent who has Child Protective Services show up at their door is going to be upset, is going to be angry, okay, and is going to be frightened. So I don't think that has anything to do with culture. It has to do with normal human emotion when it comes to the care of their children.
Thank you. That was a very powerful intervention. And I think you are 100% right. Most human beings, if they're faced with the risk of losing their children, will be in a panic. And so that is so true. So now, Brother Said, you have a question for Dr. Shola. So could I have if you can stick to the question you put, it's a very powerful question. And then I'll go to Olushola Comfort, is it? So yes, so Sister Comfort next. So first, can I have Said, please? Brother Said?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll reflect my question myself. Well, my question is to Dr. Sola, and it was lovely to see, Doctor, and the lovely program you presented. Thank you. And my question is, I am from an Asian Kashmiri background, and how can I work best with African and English communities? Basically, Asian Kashmiri Muslim oriented background, and then we're looking at the African communities. Basically, my neighbors are African as well, and they are they are Christian, and the English, basically, as you're aware, the predominantly in Middlesbrough and the UK is Christian country. So my father came here in 1950. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Shola, please.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Let me use my community as an example, good example on this. So I live in the Midland, in Milton Keynes, and I'm part of what we called Milton Keynes Intercultural Forum. Okay, it's a forum for everyone, different groups, to come together and think about how we can improve our community. So this particular question that, Saeed just mentioned really illustrates, the point about partnership, the point about joint up thinking, the point about this strategic stakeholders, the matrix that I showed you about commitment and the care, who to bring on board, what level of commitment do they have, the allies. I want to see this as, even though it's, yes, it's from the Asian community, but also is dealing with Christians. So it's dealing with different groups of people. And this is a good opportunity to actually get to understand each other's culture. So one is very keen on understanding the African, the English, and other culture. Is not leaving himself out of it by saying, no, I just want to focus on my own area. And the same thing goes with the African, the English, and other culture to reach out, to someone like Saeed to say, okay, let's come together, let's understand one another, because it is a forum. I'll call it a forum where we understand, that's why I put in the question, my response to Dr. Liz earlier, that cross-cultural best practices is good to learn from other culture. What are they doing? How are they doing things? So in my community here, that we are building that network of understanding. Okay, so it might relate to education one day, it might relate to mental health, it might relate to just, even events, cultural activity, but they bring everybody together. And sometimes, like I say, it might involve, parenting. And you are even doing great things, or like in Middlesbrough, which should be a best practice, a case study for other regions in the whole of the United Kingdom, how things should be done or how you are progressing. So my quick response or summary is the integration is through partnership. Ola is in charge. Why don't you contact Ola, who is the chair of this program? How can we work together? Maybe what he's doing right now could actually be done by saying, okay, let me invite you to my community, organize something. These other people need to come and hear about it. How can we join up thinking? Partnership and strategic alliances. I think that's probably the way forward. It's not about, let's do it alone. No, it's not about alone. It's not in silo. It has to be joined up thinking. And I hope that encourages society to think about ways, to partner with what is currently being done in Middlesbrough and other people that are online. How can you join up together to work together to get this moving? Hopefully that answers your question, Saeed.
Well, thank you very much for a very interesting and comprehensive answer. It does talk about how we live in a multicultural, multi-religious society. And you have addressed the fact that most communities have interfaith and how would I say, fora where we can meet and talk and discuss issues. That brings me to a comment put in the chat. Judah says, we've spoken about family values, but in law, children have rights to make choices about their own lives. Sometimes a child's choice may not be acceptable to the parent and will therefore create conflict in the family. I'd like to point out, because of the time, that we're in the context of this program, and we're talking about parenting. Parents also have rights. There's a right to family life. A parent has a right to bring a child up in their faith and in their culture. When the child becomes an adult, they can choose to do differently. And so we are talking about balancing rights. For a social worker to state that a religion is detrimental is very dangerous, because that in itself is undermining the family. So this is another discussion in another place, but it brings me also to what Sister Marianne said about systemic racism. And institutional racism is a problem, because if you dismiss people's culture and religion, it can be something that actually damages a family and a community. So this is why there are campaigning organizations looking at making sure that, yes, our children's rights are respected. In the UK, we have the Children Act 1989, which gives our children rights. Every child matters. Their voice needs to be heard. there have been changes in the way in which a child has their own advocate when it comes to court. But it is also important not to trample over a family's right, a community's right to pass on culture, to pass on, and with most, religious choice is the child's right. But you can't have choice if the child doesn't know. So again, it is about sharing, making sure that we make sure that our children are able to benefit from the wonder of culture. And Brother Saeed's question or question about Kashmiri culture, that's the beauty of being in a multicultural place. You can learn from other communities, they can learn from you, and together we can come up with, I would say, rather than a melting pot, a quilt or a tapestry, where we respect the integrity of each community, the beauty of what they bring, and yet we are able to not only respect, but learn, because there are things in every culture that needs to be changed. Then there are things that need to be held on to, because and I think it was Dr. Shola that talked about sense of identity. It's important that every child has that. Sister Comfort, we have 1 minute. So, and I noticed you haven't put your question in the chat. So it would be helpful if you could do that so we know exactly what you're going to ask and I know where to direct your question. So if you can put the answer in the chat or call Brother Olalekan and tell him exactly what you're going to ask, because we've barely got a minute. And I know that Sister Judah has come back with respect, the rights of the child and the rights of the parent with the focal point when there are cases of suspected or proven abuse. I think we also need to recognize that there are times when, and that is the reason why we started these Afrocentric parenting courses, where there a lot of accusations are non-proven. And it is also about that. In cases of abuse, of course, we need to put the child and protect our children. And it's a question of justice. But where there is, how would I say it? There's systemic racism. And that's another thing. Afrophobia is a problem, where we have people trampling over families and communities because we dismiss what they have to say. It is therefore a problem, and we need to speak up against that. And that is what my intervention was, that the rights of the child, yes, UK law recognizes the rights of the child, but they're also the rights of the family. Brother Olalekan, you've got your hand up. We're 1 minute over time.
Yes, thank you very much. The question from the parent I wanted to ask in the chat was that the concern they're having with social worker at the moment, there are 3 children have been taken into care, but the concern was that about religions, that the parents were telling the child, if the child lies, they'll go to hellfire. So the children have been mentally and emotionally affected with that word. So because of that, they are not coming back to them for until 18 years. So they are going to permanent care. What can they do? What hope have they got in terms of religious and belief?
I think Dr. Shola answered that question earlier, that you have a right to your religious beliefs, and it is protected in law. And it is not acceptable. And I think with most things, there is case law that is developed, etc., because people fight the issue. So a parent has a right to teach their child, and nobody has a right to undermine that teaching. However, the social services has a right or has a duty to protect children. That's what they're there for. And therefore, if they claim it is detrimental to the child, then this is a question of going to the courts maybe and finding in these balancing rights, who is right? What is the position in law? And then it's the courts that decide. But we cannot have social workers taking the law into their own hands and depriving a parent of the right to pass on their beliefs and to shape their child so that the child becomes a productive member of society. So it is 18:18, and we have gone over time, 3 minutes over the time you agreed. it is now over to you, Olalekan, to thank our two very, how would I say, very inspiring speakers. First, Sister Marianne, for coming over from Georgia and telling us what's going on. It's by sharing that we learn. And Dr. Shola, it's a big thank you to you for the research and for reminding us that academics do a lot to support us by looking at what is happening in the world and putting words to what is happening so that we are better able to articulate positions. So, Brother Olalekan, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. There's nothing else I can say than to say thank you for all the partners. Marianne, for waking up early. You are still in the morning right now. Thank you for that. Thank you to Dr. Shola as well. And all of you, please feel free to follow us on YouTube, and we will continue to keep you updated. For the parents, you are all welcome to join us tomorrow, 4 p.m. on our safe platform, as usual. 4 p.m. tomorrow. Join us tomorrow. I think, if you could permit me, 1 minute golden ticket for any social worker in the house. If you want to say anything, it's good to get information, but it's also good to share. If there's anyone in the house that wish to take that 1 minute golden before we say bye-bye to everyone. And don't forget, parents, get back to us tomorrow. Thank you. And if you feel like donating, supporting to us, please feel free to do that. We could put that on the chat as well. Once again, thank you. God bless you. One minute golden ticket for any professional in the house that feel like sharing anything. If there's nothing to share, I think we all got something to take back to Abade. Is anybody raising hand?
Yeah, thank you very much. I say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you all.
I cannot see any hand.
Thank you, Sister Maryann and Dr. Sola. Wonderful program.
Thank you very much.
Love you all. Love you all.
So thank you for that. I'll see you all tomorrow, all the parents, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.